Welcome to Alaska. We have driven, and by we, I mean me and Odin, have driven my 2020 Jeep Gladiator over 175,000 miles over the last 4 years. I figured it was a good time, especially since this is probably one of the highest mileage Jeep Gladiators out there, to do a quick overview of what's still working, what needed to be replaced, what just absolutely catastrophically failed, and a long-term high mileage review of the Gladiator. So we'll go through engine, power, batteries, all your normal stuff. But on the quick side of things, if you're new here or even if you've been watching the channel, the actual Go Fast Camper camping setup full rig walkthrough is another video that I'll link down below. So this will just cover the kind of 175,000 mile review slash problems and good things on the Gladiator, if you will. So let's get started. So cover some quick basics. This is a 2020 Jeep Gladiator Sport in a manual transmission and the firecracker red paint color. It has manual locks, manual windows, and a manual transmission. And I bought this brand new with 7 miles on it at a dealership in Indiana when I was living in Detroit, Michigan 4.5 years ago. Now, for some of the quick, almost immediate changes, if you will, when I bought the Jeep, it had halogen headlights and halogen fog lights. Within a matter of 6 months, I had changed out the halogen headlights for these LEDs. I believe these are the Oracle headlights. I'm not entirely sure. I bought them 4 years ago. They have not been great. Probably would not buy them again, but I've yet to find something that is a better replacement. The largest issue I have with these headlights is that they're not heated. And in Alaska, with the amount of snow, especially some of the wet snow we get down on the Kenai Peninsula, which is where we are right now, or in Anchorage area, I run into issues with the snow caking up on headlights. Now around the house in Fairbanks, not so much of an issue, but still looking for a heated LED headlight. However, the light coming out of these is far superior to the halogen lights. Same thing on the fog lights. I've run through the halogen fog lights, then I went to the KC Flex Air 3 fog lights with like an SAE combo on them, and then I upgraded to the Nacho lights a year ago, and I absolutely love the Nacho lights. The only thing I wish I could do is take one of these Grandes from the Nacho line and plug that into my headlight. Unfortunately, can't do it. The power's not enough, and it's not street legal, so until they come out with a better option, I'll probably keep these. Moving over to an obvious missing fender here, if you will. It's also a good opportunity to take a look at the wheel suspension and everything that's going in the inner fender liners. But I hit a moose about 8 months ago. We're currently in May, so I hit a moose in September of 2024 when I was heading down south for Overland the Red and Overland Expo East. There's a video I released on that. But the moose was standing off to the side of the road with kind of its butt to the road and turned last second, was able to swerve out of the way, and ended up giving the moose a stinger. Moose was able to get up and walk away, but it did tear the entire front plastic fender off, and I've yet had an opportunity to replace it because I'm not entirely sure which fender system I want to go with. I definitely don't want to go with the OEM stock fenders that came on this because they're plastic and they rattle a little bit and they're not very secure, but I've yet to find one that I like. So the fender got ripped here. The moose fur is actually on the rear fender over here. There's still some of that fur left that I'm leaving in there as kind of an ornament. But the stock plastic fenders that come with the Sport aren't terrible. They offer decent protection. They've got the turn signals integrated in it. However, I haven't found one to upgrade to, but I will be upgrading. It's not exactly my favorite thing on the Jeep. The black and red combination works, but the inner fender liner isn't the sturdiest. I've had the inner fender liners on both front wheel wells and the rear wheel wells. That plastic liner is cracked in multiple locations, so I've got it Gorilla taped in the back, but on the front we swapped them out because after a couple tire rotations and just some rocks getting up there, they started cracking and getting fragile. And so obviously with 175,000 miles on the truck, I'm not going to be able to run one set of tires for that many miles. This is actually our fourth set of tires. I bought the Jeep Gladiator with a set of stock, I believe they were 31-inch Bridgestone dualers on it, and we drove those a solid 60-ish, 65,000 miles before we changed them out. Those were actually the set of tires that we did our first drive up to Alaska in. When I picked up the camper in 2022, the tires had right around 50,000 miles on it, and we drove from Detroit all the way up to the end of the road at Prudhoe Bay, and then into Northwest Territories and around and back. And they were just about dead when we got back to Detroit. But I loved them so much, they handled so well on that trip, that I upgraded to 35s and got the 35-inch Bridgestone dualers. And for the Midwest roads, it was perfect. With the increase in tire size of the 35-inch Bridgestone dualers, we also went and did the Mopar 2-inch lift, which from an actual height difference really is about 3 to 3.5 inches, especially on the lighter Gladiator Sport, especially when I removed the rear seats. And it comes with the Fox shock system. We've now had this for over 100,000 miles, and I've not changed out the shocks or fixed the shocks, so the ride is a little bit rough. It's on the list of things to do, but the 2-inch lift easily runs 35-inch tires, even though I'm still running the stock rims from the Sport model. I haven't changed out the rims. They don't have an offset, so they're the standard tires. I probably need to bump them out a little bit because the 35-inch KO2s that I'm running right now are a little bit wider. But after the 35-inch Bridgestone dualers, we went to the Toyo Open Country AT2s as soon as we moved to Alaska. Those were brilliant. They lasted for more than 50,000 miles, and I just got the KO2s a couple months ago after we were in New Jersey and making our way back up to Alaska. So going to run these out until they're done, and then I'm probably going to try out some Mickey Thompson because that seems to be what everyone in the off-road group up here seems to be enjoying and running. And now before I forget, on top of the tires, we are running the Fishbone off-road inner fender liner. As I mentioned, the plastic fender liner was falling apart and cracked, and so when I hit the moose, it actually ripped off the rest of the inner fender liner. So we did about 10,000 miles without an inner fender liner on this side, and I was able to install the Fishbone off-road ones, and they've been great so far. They clean up real well. They allow me to quickly access all the electrical stuff behind it, but I think we'll end up doing the same inner liner from Fishbone or another company in the rear wheel well because the rear is causing an issue. I'll definitely need to take these off to fix the fender wiring and turn signals, but for right now it works. So 4 sets of tires. These still probably have about 35 or 40,000 miles left on them. We've only had them under 6 months. And then we have changed the front brakes once. So we're now on our second set of brakes. The front brakes probably have another 30-ish thousand miles on them before I need to swap them over. I swapped them right at about 90,000 miles. And so we've got a little bit more to go. The rear brakes still probably have close to 80 or 90 so thousand miles left to go on them. We swapped those at about 115,000 miles. The parking brake is the original parking brake. However, I've had to retighten the parking brake by completely lifting up the center console 3 times. The parking brake's gone again, so I've got to do it a 4th time. The last 2 times I used blue Loctite. This time I'm going to use red Loctite. What ultimately ends up happening is on the colder mornings as I'm tightening it, I can feel it one time just slip. And so right now, my parking brake isn't completely useless, but it's partially useless. So that's probably the first really annoying thing of the entire Gladiator setup on at least my model from the Sport with the manual transmission is that the parking brake itself can only be adjusted from inside. And so when you remove the rear seats like I have, it makes it really difficult. And so most shops won't touch it. I brought it to Midas, I brought it to the Jeep dealer, I brought it to private mechanics. They won't touch it. The folks at Total Truck will help me readjust it because they're the ones who helped me build out the rear platform. But I'm now on the 4th or 5th time having to adjust the parking brake, so that's annoying. Additionally, I only run 4 tires. I no longer run a spare tire. 2 reasons for that, which we'll go to the back and I'll talk about that in a second. But I'm doing a 4-tire rotation, so every 5,000 miles, I'm doing a tire rotation and an oil change rather than waiting for an $8,000 to $10,000 oil change rotation. And in that same process, I'm doing cabin air filter and oil filter. So just more of a rotation, and this has been on synthetic oil for 150,000 miles now. Right when we hit the 30,000 mile break-in period, I swapped everything over. And so from a rear of the Jeep, we've got the stock rear bumper, stock tail lights, stock tailgate. We're still running the factory camera. This is the factory trailer hitch that came with it. As I mentioned, I no longer run a spare tire. The first reason is that I just don't use one. With an asterisk, the only time I've ever needed one is the most recent trip down the Alaska-Canada highway. So I think moving forward, the next time I make that drive, I'll carry a spare tire. But the second reason, and probably the more important one, is that my spare tire compartment or winch that holds it up and under the truck bed is broken and has been broken for the last 2.5 years. It actually seized on itself the last time I lowered the spare to do a rotation and tried to bring it back up. The cable actually seized onto itself even with the tire on it. And so I haven't been able to use that in 2.5, 3 years, and the cost to replace it isn't worth it to me given I almost never need a spare tire. So I carry a tire repair kit, a patch kit, and the glue tread in my recovery box. So I just simply haven't had a flat that I haven't been able to fix. The main reason I'll probably start running a spare tire if and when, sorry, mosquitoes are out already. I will be running a spare tire now when I drive through Canada, because the last time I drove through Canada, I got a flat, I popped it, I had to patch it and go into Whitehorse, and they had to do an interior patch. But in order to get larger tires, like 35-inch tires, was going to be a 14-day wait anywhere north of Dawson Creek. So if you have to drive from Fairbanks to the lower 48 and you're running tires that are larger than stock tires, you're going to have a difficult time finding a replacement until you get down into your Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver area. So I'll start running one when I do those long drives, but anywhere in Alaska or frankly lower 48, there's just no need for one, because with the tire repair kit and the plug kit and everything, it's extra added weight. And so now to, I guess, the 2 major problem areas that I've had. Because this is a manual transmission, there have been multiple recalls on the clutch within the manual transmissions on the Gladiators for the launch edition all the way through the 2022 year model. I went ahead and preemptively swapped my clutch out at 100,000 miles right as I was starting to get a little bit of slippage to the Center Force dual friction clutch kit. 2 reasons for that. One, I wanted to make sure I had a higher quality product that was going to last longer. But additionally, when I went to do the replacement, there was no fix from Mopar or Stellantis for the actual, there was no fix for the clutch recall. And the recall on the clutch is because it would overheat, catch fire, and just throw shrapnel everywhere. Didn't really want that happening if I'm in the middle of nowhere. So they had the recall for 2 years, still no fix other than putting the exact same clutch back into the system. I didn't feel like waiting, especially with the clutch slipping and the longer road trips I was taking. So I went and paid up front to have the Center Force clutch install with full master cylinder, save cylinder, everything swapped over. The recall in my warranty on it ended up covering about $1,200 of the $2,100 cost, because the clutch is more expensive, the whole kit is more expensive, but the warranty that I have did end up covering a good 50+% of it. So out of pocket for an upgrade, not terribly upset about it, but wish I didn't have to handle a recall on a vehicle that's now 4 years old. The other major and by major, I mean I didn't have this Jeep for 8 months because of it. The engine catastrophically failed. In March of 2023, I almost got stranded in the Arctic Circle at Tulik Field Station. Thankfully, I had called ahead and let Tulik know that I would be passing through and had plans to stop anyways, one of the perks of working for the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And on the way down, I'm glad I had called ahead because the engine started throwing misfire after misfire after misfire, and then I got stuck in a blizzard. And so I was stuck in Tulik for 2 days in a blizzard. And I'm glad to be able to stay at Tulik. When I got back to Fairbanks, I brought it to the local dealership and we diagnosed it. And I've had an extended warranty on this vehicle since I bought it. I paid just over $2,100 out of pocket for the extended warranty. I shopped around, as you should with all extended warranties. Some dealerships quoted me $3,500. Other dealerships quoted me $2,800. I was able to get in touch with a dealership in Indiana again. They quoted me $2,100 for it because you've got the warranty plus kind of the upcharge that then whoever sells the warranty, that's their commission, if you will. But this has a 7-year unlimited mile warranty. It's the best warranty I could find since they no longer do an unlimited mile, which would have been, or an unlimited years, unlimited miles. 7-year unlimited, rock solid, especially considering it's 2025 and I have until February of 2027 on this to be completely covered under warranty, which is crucial because in March of 2023, the engine failed and was throwing misfires and ultimately ended up needing rockers, cams, and lifters completely replaced on the right side of the engine. Thought we were fixed and everything was good. Nope. Fast forward to January of 2024, and the engine starts throwing misfires again. Throwing codes, full, complete issues. Turn the engine off for the night. Going camping with friends. I've got a video on it that I can link just below where the camping trip where the Jeep ends up getting towed. Try and turn it on the next morning, and ultimately moisture had gotten into the engine and the timing chain had frozen to the block. So when I went to turn it over and start up the truck, the timing gear tried to spin. The chain didn't move and it snapped all of the teeth off of the timing gear, sending shrapnel through the entire engine. It immediately went into limp mode, had no power, was kind of chugging along. Got it towed to the Jeep dealership in Anchorage because at the time we were in Hatcher Pass and I was stuck. And then I was out of the truck for 4.5 months. So 3.5 months in 2023 without the truck in late winter, early spring era. 5 months in 2024 in winter into spring. So we've been here now almost 3 years. In 2025 is the first year we've been here where I've had my truck the entire time from winter into now summer. So a solid 8 months without the vehicle. At that point, we'd probably be close to 190,000 miles by now because of that down period. But it's now got a brand new engine. We put the engine in at 133,000 miles. So we're just over 40,000 miles on the new engine. We're just about 60,000 miles on the new clutch, and everything runs great. No complaints. I'm still getting 17 miles to the gallon, but all of that, the engine repair the first time around, $100 out of pocket thanks to the warranty. The full engine replacement in 2024, that out of pocket, if I didn't have warranty, would have cost me about $18,000. Cost me $100 out of pocket. Now, the engine's imploding or dying, if you will, that, and especially with the time engine, that seems to be extremely rare, if not I'm the only one it's happened to. However, the lifters and rockers and cam issue that I experienced initially with the misfires, that's happened on a lot of the early year Gladiators. So that seems to be extremely common to the point where it is of concern. And obviously the clutch recall on the manual transmission is also very common and another issue for concern. Now, for the extended warranty, I drive my vehicles like crazy. I don't beat them up, but this is a 4-year-old vehicle with 175,000 miles on it. Clearly, I drive way more than the average person, And so that extended warranty, especially for a full 7 years, just gives me peace of mind, because if I had to shell out 18 grand to replace the engine on this, I can't afford that. I'd have to sell the vehicle, strip all the parts out of it, and figure out what I was doing. I just wouldn't be able to, out of pocket, drop $18,000 on a new engine on a vehicle at that point in time was just under 4 years old, 3 years old actually. So the extended warranty for me makes a ton of sense. I see that going all over the place, and you don't need one. They're scams. They are definitely expensive if you don't shop around. So if you are looking at extended warranties, always call a couple dealerships and negotiate, because they've got the actual cost and then the upsell, which is what the finance person is going to make their money off of. So moving from the engine back to kind of wear and tear parts, the gears on the Gladiator are the exact same as they were when it was stock. I haven't done the gears yet. I likely won't touch the gears until after the extended warranty expires. Just financially, I don't have the funds to drop $3 grand on a gear change, and it works well enough right now. I'll likely in the future go up to 37s. As much as I would like to go to 40s or 44s, I'll likely swap out the axles at some point, since it's got a Dana 40. I believe it's got a 40 in the front and a 44 in the rear, because it's not the max tow package, but it does have the tow package. So I'll upgrade the axles, do larger tires, and at that point in time, I'll definitely do a re-gear. Because it has the upgraded tow package, not max tow, but upgraded, it's also got a larger alternator, which is important because that helps charge the house battery within all the camp setup, if you will. But same gears that were stock. I've changed the differential fluid, I believe 3 times so far. I did the first one when we did the lift in tires from stock to 35s. So right around 65,000 miles, we did a flush. I did another flush at 120,000 miles for the 60,000 mile rotation. Sorry, we're actually at 4 diff flushes, because then I did one at 133,000 miles when we did an engine swap, because it had been sitting for so long and there had been a bunch of stream crossings. And then I just did one at 160-ish thousand miles. Again, with the water crossings we have in Alaska and the silt, I'm going to probably be rotating my diff fluid every 30 to 40,000 miles rather than every 60,000 miles. Just preventative maintenance at this point in time. And then the last thing, if you will, for the exterior, and then I'll jump in the driver's seat and do kind of an interior on changes. This is only the second windshield I've had on the Jeep. These are probably the 15th or 16th set of wiper blades, because I have to change them every quarter. So I'm likely changing wiper blades 3 or 4 times a year, just based on the cold and the snow kind of eating at the blades. But this is only the second windshield I've had. I was waiting to the very end on the stock windshield, knowing that it's basically flat up and down in the roads in Alaska with all the rocks. I knew I was going to get a chip almost immediately, and sure enough, I swapped this windshield out. 2 months ago. I've already got a crack that's hit. Thankfully, I went to Safelite and got this, so when I get back to Fairbanks in a couple days, I'll have them fill it with some of the resin. But that's just, it's what we get with the Wranglers and the Gladiators because of the windshield and the almost vertical nature of it. There's not much you can do with it. And so inside of the actual Jeep itself, we've kept it pretty stock in the front seat. The rear seat's a completely different story. I removed the rear seats almost immediately to build a platform for Odin. We had originally started with the Goose Gear platform. That wasn't working for our needs, but so instead we removed it. By we, I mean Odin and I removed it, built a custom platform, which also allowed us to do the power setup, which is in the back seat. Again, the actual full Jeep walk around is in another video that I'll link down below. The Jeep is built for winter camping. From a wear and tear perspective, the Jeep originally had a soft top when I bought it. I was able to pick up a hard top from someone for $1,000 a couple of years ago. Came with everything I needed except for some of the front mounting hardware. So I went and bought that and installed it. But from a stock standpoint, the rest of the cab is basically as it was when I bought it, just a lot dirtier. And there's only been one major issue from a driver perspective, and that's the stock head unit. It is, as I'm sure seems to be issues in a lot of the Stellantis Jeep products right now, the stock head unit, even the upgraded stock head unit, not the really big one, but the 5-inch and the 7-inch or the larger one, the clock on this doesn't work very well. It doesn't actually keep time, so it's always slowing down. So after about a week, I'll be off by a minute or two slower. It has issues connecting with Bluetooth. It has issues recognizing devices. It often freezes. There are actually a couple times where it seems to overload and want to blow itself up because it'll just freeze and stop, and then I'll get a like and then a large popping noise, and it'll die and then start back over. It's on the long list of things to replace, but considering the replacement head units from companies like Stinger or Alpine are $1,700, I can spend $1,700 on other things. And for right now, I'm trying out a $20 wireless CarPlay setup off Amazon to my iPhone and hoping that that works. It's still stereo issues, but if I can run all of my audio wirelessly through something that then plugs in via headphone jack, it's not great. But again, this is a 2020 Sport. This isn't a Rubicon. It's not any of the higher trims. It is as bare bones as it gets, which is what I wanted. So if the head unit is kind of crappy and I have to use an auxiliary one, okay, fine. Now, from that head unit, surprisingly, and this one I think is where everyone's going to be shocked, I'm still running the stock battery and auxiliary battery. I somehow have made it 175,000 miles and 4+ years. I think we're at a 4.25 for the vehicle. I'm still running the same battery and auxiliary battery that were in the Jeep when I bought it. 2 years in, I started having issues with the auto start stop in the 4-wheel drive system, and I took it to a dealership, and the auxiliary battery was completely dead and was draining the starter battery. They did a full recharge and swapped out the wires of it, and I haven't had an issue since. I mean, we're well past when both of those batteries should have died, given that we're coming up on 5 years in about 6 months, and they're still running strong. Now, in the last 2 years, I no longer run any of my auxiliary items off of the starter battery or the auxiliary battery. And so the auxiliary battery might be dead at this point. I don't know, because my automatic start-stop hasn't worked in over a year. But since I'm not running anything off of it other than starting the vehicle, I'm not noticing any issues because I now run all of my power off of the Expion 360 battery setup in the back seat behind me. That includes all of my lights, all of my communication equipment, Starlink, WeBoost, you name it. Nothing is coming off of the starter battery except for the charging system for that. So all of my accessories are pulling power from the Expion battery, and the Expion is charging via the alternator and the starter battery, if you will. So there's no real load on the starter battery. Now, I'm not electrically savvy, so if anything I said is completely wrong, I apologize. It was explained to me this way, and so I'm explaining it there. I will likely need to change out the starter battery and auxiliary battery. I don't mind the auto start stop because since I drive a manual, anytime I'm at a traffic light, my foot's on the clutch, so it's not going to trigger the auto start stop anyways. I'm never at a point where I have my foot off the clutch and my foot on the brake and I'm not in gear. So it's not that big of a deal for me. However, if I had an automatic, it likely would drive me up a wall. So take that for what it's worth. But 4+ years in and 175,000 miles in to still be running the starter battery and auxiliary battery, it's not bad. So again, as of now, the clutch needed to be replaced by recall, and it was starting to slip at 120-ish thousand miles, and the engine basically murdered itself. But those are the only 2 major fixes, and thanks to my extended warranty, I was out of pocket about $300. $100 for the clutch, $200 for the engine. If I didn't have the extended warranty, I'd be looking at $20,000 in repairs to the Jeep. And so I don't know if I'll ever buy another Jeep product. I'm not going to sell my Gladiator. I'm going to keep this for the rest of my life and just keep fixing it. But knowing that without that warranty, I'd be out 20 grand, and the fact that I'd have to buy a warranty because the product wouldn't last that long, don't know if I'd buy another Jeep product because of that. But again, I have no plans of getting rid of this, so I don't need another Jeep product to begin with. And so ultimately, with 175,000 miles on this, another 2 years of my 7-year unlimited mile warranty, a new engine with only 40,000 miles on it, a new clutch with just about 70,000 miles on it. This Jeep is, I don't want to say brand new, but it's still in its break-in period. And I don't ever have plans on selling it. So we'll do an update in another 25,000 miles at 200,000 miles, which, knowing how many miles we drive every year, will likely be February to March of 2026. And so we're looking at probably a 225 or 230,000 mile Jeep Gladiator by the time we hit February of 2027. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're well past that. And so the goal realistically is to drive this until it dies and then fix it and drive it again and fix it. And just one of the main reasons I got it as bone stock as possible is so that it would be easy enough to fix, and there aren't that many of electronics in it. But it's not left me stranded, and with the 2 times it did absolutely die, it got me back to Fairbanks from the Arctic Circle and died once we got to Fairbanks at the dealership and was limping. Didn't leave me stranded. And then when the timing gear absolutely just disintegrated in Hatcher Pass, it was able to limp 20-something miles out of Hatcher Pass to the Parks Highway so that I could get within cell service and get a pickup truck, and then was able to get home. So at no point in the 4.5 years, even with engine failures and everything else, has this ever left me stranded. And I think that's pretty awesome. Would I buy another Gladiator? No, but that's not to say because it's not the right product and it's a bad product. Just with the adventures that I like to go on with Odin, a 5-foot bed just isn't large enough for us. And now that I know that, when I bought it, I was looking at Tacomas and 4Runners, and the Gladiator was $32,000. To buy this exact same Gladiator now would cost me about $40-something thousand. And I think I'd much prefer a 6-foot bed Tacoma or a 4Runner over this. But that's not to say it's a bad vehicle. Just when I bought it, I was in Detroit. Now we're in Alaska. And I think we need a longer bed. So it's not going anywhere, and we'll continue to use it. But again, in hindsight, it's been great. Don't know if I'd buy it again in 2025, but in 2020 when I bought it, no problems with it whatsoever. And it's in red, which is my favorite color. So we'll do another what's broken, what's working in about 25,000 miles, and we'll see you then.